Hello, I'm Christopher Plummer, and please don't go anywhere because Profiles is just coming up.
Welcome to Profiles. I'm Marley Hall. Today's guest is Christopher Plummer, one of our greatest actors in film and on stage over the past 5 decades. He's won 2 Emmy Awards and 2 Tony Awards and garnered countless nominations. Plummer's acting versatility over the course of his career has remained extraordinary. After a short break, we'll join our host, Mickey Burns, as he welcomes the talented Christopher Plummer to Profiles. Welcome back to Profiles. Actor Christopher Plummer is a native of Canada and took the American stage by storm in the 1950s and has evolved into one of our greatest actors. He's currently celebrating the release of his autobiography titled In Spite of Myself, a touching memoir of a most interesting and accomplished life. So let's join our host Mickey Burns as he welcomes actor Christopher Plummer to Profiles.
Christopher Plummer, welcome to our show, Profiles.
Thank you. Thank you. Good to be here.
It's an honor meeting you.
I'm going to give you cheers with my coffee.
I appreciate that. You, of course, are one of our finest actors and continue to be so.
Well, thank you, sir.
Currently celebrating the release of your book titled Christopher Plummer, In Spite of Myself. It's quite a read.
Bless your heart for reading it. How long did it take you?
Well, it took a couple of weekends. But it is an overview of a most interesting life, and I guess that's why it took you so long to write.
Well, also, you know, there were a few jobs, because I don't earn my living as a writer, that broke it up.
Yeah,
and
sure.
I can't concentrate on writing a book when I'm learning a role.
Of course not.
So I had to stop, and then boom, boom. But once back, once you remember something, 20 other images come to mind. So it really should have taken only a couple of years, but it took 8.
Well, it's beautifully written. Congratulations.
Thank you.
In the book, you write extensively about your childhood and growing up in Canada. Yeah. And you said in a recent interview that youth is the most important part in any book.
I think it is. I've always found it fascinating, particularly if you read autobiographies or biographies. For Charlie Chaplin's book, I mean, the first part was the most interesting, about his growing up. And I always joke about it because the poverty-stricken youth and how he managed to get up and then become this incredible genius at comedy. Yeah. And then the second part is all about success. So what the hell do you do then? It's so boring. What are you going to do? Because failure is entertaining and funny.
And success is boring.
Is a bore. Yeah, it's not a bore when it's happening to you.
But for other people to read about it.
For other people, it's awful.
Well, very interesting. Now, your boyhood in Canada, many of your fans may know, others might not, was one of privilege.
Yeah.
In fact, that your great-grandfather, I was interested to read, Sir John Abbott, was Canada's 3rd Prime Minister.
Yeah. He didn't last very long as Prime Minister because it came at the end of his life. Yeah. And he hated the idea of being Prime Minister.
Did he? He was also a railroad.
Yeah, he was a railroad guy, and largely he won the case for the building of the Canadian Pacific Railway. Huh. And among his clients were he was a lawyer, corporate lawyer, and among his clients were the big 4 that actually built it. So he's the author of its charter, and he was a very philanthropic old guy. Yeah. So much so that we started to lose all our money, son of a gun. What the hell did he do? I didn't get any of it. I didn't see any of his bounty.
That happens in certain economies.
Yes.
How then, growing up in privilege like you did Christopher Plummer get the acting bug?
Well, my parents and my mom was very artistic, and and she'd read a lot, and they taught me how to read poetry and stuff when I was 14. I mean, they were really a very educated family and culture, and I'm very grateful to them. But it was tough because everything was easy, you see. So
yeah.
I had to find some anger somewhere. I mean, I didn't grow up from the streets up, so I didn't have the built-in anger. I had to go and find it.
You learned it.
Yeah, and that was tough, but I did have a very strong desire for the gutter, and that was not tough.
Okay.
And Montreal,
Yes.
to finish answering your question, at that time, a lot of people don't know, it was a huge city for nightclubs and cabaret, and there were about 400 nightclubs operating in Montreal. Unbelievable.
Back in the 30s and 40s.
Back in the 30s and 40s. It was a huge jazz town. I saw everybody when I was a kid because everybody came there. Not only young Judy Garlands and young Frank Sinatras, but all the people all the entertainers from Europe because it was a bilingual city.
So it was an exciting place to
Oh,
grow
it was
up.
Jumping. So I wanted to write about that to show people what Montreal was once like. I mean, it's still a charming town, but it was a swinging town in those days.
Wow.
I've got to tell one little story
Please.
about the mayor of Montreal.
Yes.
The governor of Quebec, the province, just a humorless old guy called Duplessis. He decided he'd close all the bars and the whorehouses. And the police decided to work along because most of the big shots in town, including justices, had a favorite whorehouse. So the police did that wonderful thing of closing, padlocking all the front doors, but leaving the back doors open of the brothels. I love that gesture.
I also read back in those days that your roots can be traced to radio.
Yeah.
And
I started in radio.
You started in radio in Canada. And when I read that, I was just wondering if there was, did it offer some kind of foundation for you for the theatrical career that would follow?
Oh, God, yes. And it taught me so much about how to use the voice, because that's all you have on radio, and how many different voices we were required to use. I had to learn how to read Polish, German, French, because the script would come along and they'd say, there were only about 25 of us major sort of actors playing in it, like a stock company almost. And they'd say, okay, today you're a Polish builder. All right, well, please.
In the 50s, you left Canada, you came to Broadway.
Yes.
And that era is considered the last golden age of American theater.
Well, I'm afraid it is so far. Yeah.
And that was going to be my question. How has Broadway changed since then, and what do you feel about the state of Broadway today?
Well, I mean, I still love it.
Yeah.
It's still there, but in those days, you couldn't. We were parked outside Broadway in Boston or Philly or something, waiting for theaters to be available because it was such a mad crush.
Wow.
It was, it was like a parking lot.
Wow.
We'd say, oh, you got to stay another 6 weeks in Boston. We can't find a theater.
Wow.
Wow. It was so rich in product.
And quality.
And quality, yeah.
Today?
Well, today, you see, it's the big advent of the musicals, and what television and video has done to the attention span of the audience is...
it's incredible. Now, for your stage work, you've won 2 Tonys and been nominated 6 times. And you said something really interesting, which I never looked at it this way before. You said, the nominations are the fairest part of the whole deal.
Yeah.
The person who wins is not really the best actor of the year. And you went on to say, if they were all playing Hamlet, then it would be fair.
Yeah, it would be fair. It would be a race to the finish.
I never thought of it that way, but it's so true.
Somebody has to win, I guess, but it's not... If they just stopped at the big 4.
At the nomination.
Yeah, and the same thing in the Oscars, if they just stopped at the big 4.
Right. Interesting.
I was just watching last night All My Sons on television with Eddie G. Robinson, who was one of my favorite actors.
Yeah.
Do you know that guy who was so brilliant in so many thousands of movies and he carried so many movies so beautifully, never was nominated for an Oscar or never won?
How unfair.
How unjust is that?
Sure.
I mean, he was one of the greatest actors the screen and stage has ever known. But I'm not going to fight for you, Eddie, because you're dead. And it's too cruel out there.
I did want to mention, as I said, that you are the father of the talented actress Amanda Plummer.
Oh, yeah.
And in doing the research, I read that you didn't know her that well until she was 18 years old.
Yeah, well, I was living in Europe, and Tammy and I had divorced, Tammy Grimes.
Yes.
And she grew up here and went to school. I mean, at least I sent her to school. That was big of me, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And she didn't know where to go and what to do. She was a great horsewoman.
Mm-hmm.
She was a fabulous rider and trained the Vanderbilt horses, race horses, for a while. And then built like a little jockey, you know. She was small-boned. And then suddenly she just dropped out of everything and then said, oh, well, right, I guess I'll try the...
She activated the acting gene that you gave
my
her.
Parents, well, no, when I saw her, as I say in the book, when I saw her in Agnes of God...
Incredible.
There was nothing of me or Tammy and no, there was no genes coming from me. They were so original and so extraordinary that I thought, my God, she really has formed a real person of her own, you know. She had to, because we were such neglectful parents, really.
Wow. And interestingly, you also didn't meet your father until
No, it was the same deal.
Like 17 years old.
18 years, yeah.
And
except, of course, in that time, there was no point in going on anymore. I mean, he was older man.
Yeah.
And I mean, we tried
You did.
to like each other, but please, it's too late. You know, it's too late.
Right.
And I was so fond of my mother, who had done all the dirty
All the work.
Yeah, all the work.